and welcome to our special series on amplifying growth, achieving impact. I'm Pallavi from People Matters. This exclusive video series is in partnership with upGrad for Business and will focus on how do we empower organizations to thrive in the new age economy. As organizations find themselves in a sea of unprecedented changes and market disruptions, their great assets are their people. And empowering their workforce with future ready skills is integral for mining their potential to open up career pathways. Through this initiative, we will dive deeper into three high impact areas: role transformation, reducing skills obsolescence, and enhancing employee engagement, which will also form the bedrock of our multimedia ebook coming to you very soon with exclusive and power packed expert insights and takeaways that will empower you to curate impactful growth journeys and thrive in the future of work. To steer today's conversation that will center around reducing skills obsolescence and how Bajaj Energy achieved this with upGrad, we have with us Mohit Saxena, Head of Human Resources at Bajaj Energy. Mohit is a seasoned HR professional with over 21 years of diverse experience across sectors like manufacturing, telecom, and technology, to name a few. He's an enterprising leader with leadership, team management, and negotiation skills, and has the ability to motivate teams to achieve organizational objectives and create a positive social impact. We also have with us Minaxi Indra, President of upGrad for Business. Minaxi has almost 2 decades of business growth experience across Asia Pacific and has worked with technology leaders in business development and customer management roles. She is a purpose-driven leader motivated by building businesses that positively impact customers and the marketplace. Currently, she leads marketing, sales, solutions, and customer success teams for upGrad for Business. Thank you for joining us today. I'll just want quick opening remarks from both of you. Maybe I'll start with you, Mohit. Why do you think reducing skill obsolescence is crucial when designing L&D programs? And as of now, how big is the issue?
So I'd just like to put it this way. See, that companies today that want to stay relevant and attract top talent need to consider reducing skill obsolescence as their topmost priority. In today's context, with a varied workforce covering 4 different generations, Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, and millennials, the employees are looking at fresh and enriching careers that can balance their lives, and companies are also looking for employees who can meet today's challenge and adapt to the fast-paced environment. Now, if you look at the scenario worldwide, globally, 9 out of 10 companies are facing a skill gap today, and the pandemic has only accelerated the need for the skill gap in the present context today. And if you look at more than 70% of the employees today are only willing to leave their current positions to work for companies that could actually be more willing to invest in training and education. So in this context, looking at the overall environment, the external and internal factors, reducing skill obsolescence becomes the dire need for any progressive organization to sustain itself in the market today.
Your comments, Meenakshi?
Thanks for that, Pallavi. So I couldn't agree more with Mohit. It's as prevalent today, maybe more than it was earlier. When we look at the workforce of today, when we look at companies today, we want to create an ecosystem where our employees can not only be productive, but literally thrive in that ecosystem. And no better way than looking at reimagining the way learning interventions, the way our programs are made, ensure that we get the most out of our employees, that they feel a sense of belonging in organizations. And the best way for us to do that is building a career path, building a competency-based path for them to really circumvent this fear, if I may call it, of their skills or roles getting obsolete.
In fact, if I were to ask you as a extension to this question, that what, according to you, are some of the factors or maybe some key trends which may have impacted or influenced leaders when they design their L&D programs, keeping in mind the talent strategies for the future of work? Minaxi.
So Pallavi, this is one of my favorite questions. So rein me in case if I kind of go overboard. So first and foremost, we'll talk about when we look at businesses, when we look at L&D teams, they are working together to future-proof their organizations. A wholesome learning and development for employees at all levels of the talent pyramid is the utmost on the enterprise agenda today. I remember a recent survey that I was reading. A glaring 98% of companies have reported significant skill gaps in the areas of data science and adjacent roles. On top of that, when we have new data trends that are being introduced to the market almost every day, businesses and teams need to adapt very quickly to these changing market dynamics. At upGrad for Business, we are looking at reimagining certain aspects of skilling that we know of, a shifted perspective, if you may, to bring amplified growth in new ways to a technology-fueled workforce. Based on our conversation with over 100 plus industry and HR leaders, Mohit being one of those, we understood that organizations are looking at amplifying growth via three key ways. The first, of course, is enabling employee engagement. Second is offering competency-based role transformations. And third, of course, is the topic that we are discussing today, which is that of reducing skills obsolescence. Observing these key themes and reflecting back on the successful programs that we have delivered in the market, we connected the dots to identify 6 facets or trends that could be considered for skilling the workforce of now and the workforce of the future. We call it the Q print, if you would, and the 6 elements that it has is that of industry readiness. As businesses need a new way skilling plan to stay ahead of market vagaries. The second one is, of course, credentialing to enable qualification or certification as a talent differentiator, not only within their organizations, but at the market at large. The third one, of course, is that of having an agility to adapt to the market forces. This can be done via flexible skilling plans that are responsive to the market changes. The fourth one is standardizing to scale, which means building repeatable skilling plans for talent transformation in organizations. While we do all these four, it's critical for us to look at the next one, which is measurement matrices, such that learning outcomes are qualified and help in informed decision making. When we bring these 5 things together, last but not the least, we look at reimagining business outcomes through the alignment of learning initiative with business goals like profitability, productivity, growth, employee engagement, just to name a few. This blueprint we've recognized as 6 key themes or trends, if you would, that helps learners get performance outcomes from their roles and enterprises get business outcomes that matter to them. It gives practical insights on implementing a reflective business outcomes oriented learning and development strategy, which is driven by business practices.
In fact, coming to how Bajaj Energy has led its skilling agenda, we would like to know from you, Mohit, what were the driving forces or probably reasons behind your future leadership program in partnership with upGrad for Business, and what were the prominent reasons for choosing this program and upGrad?
So I'd like to bring a little bit of insights into the future leadership development program, which we had conceptualized at Bajaj. As an organization, we focused at being a future ready organization, and we wanted to ensure that the line of leadership which is there in the organization actually becomes a strong succession to the existing leaders, and there's a smooth transition which is happening in the business. So in order to do that, we very strongly believe that our people development agenda would focus not only on upgrading and aligning our future leaders in line with the changing needs of the business, but also build in some qualities like bringing in agility within them, accountability and achievement focus, and also adding in a sense of empathy and inclusivity into the leaders while handling the key roles that they were doing. So when we were trying to look at this transformation, we had a robust talent management exercise which we carried out within the organization, identified the high pots within the organization who could actually scale up to those roles in the future. And then when we brought them in, we deliberated with all the leaders and really understood that it's not just the technical competence which is going to put people at the peak of leadership. It's also the holistic development in terms of the leadership qualities which need to come in. So when we needed to do that, we were again out into the market looking and speaking to a lot of the service delivery partners who were giving different offerings. But the challenge which we had today was that the entire workforce or the way the business was being done has transformed post-pandemic. So there's been a lot of pivoting towards hybridization in the workforce model which is coming in. There is a work group which has actually got very less concentration span of concentration from the previous years. So you had to handle teams and people who are working in very dynamic environments. How do you keep them engaged? How do you keep them focused? Thinking of conventional ways of assuming that we will design a 1 day training program or a 2 day training program and put people into those programs was something which was not going to work, because the effectiveness of those programs remains just for that period that the person has attended it, and there's no implementation of that learnings which can actually help in changing or transforming the culture of the organization. That is where, when we spoke to upGrad, we were pretty impressed with the kind of technology platform which they brought in, with the kind of expertise and the kind of experience they had with the trainers who were there to train our people on the specific soft skills. We loved the way they wanted to do the training using the psychometric tools to do the proper assessment of people to find out their strengths and their areas of improvement, which can then be harnessed in the right direction. This were some of the key important elements. Added to it, the blended fusion of having a self-paced learning, a virtual instructor-led training, self-help groups to do discussions and brainstormings amongst each other, getting in the industry experts to give you the best insights of practical business scenarios was something which was a mixed model which we really wanted to implement. So it was asking nothing but less than the moon, and I think upGrad came up on all those promises in terms of looking at the usage of psychometric tools, usage of technology, usage of the innovative Akar model with the use, which was like awareness, knowledge, application, and reinforcement. So we felt that this would be one good partnership which will help us make our organization future ready. And I think with the help of Minaxi, we had good lot of deliberations before we could conceptualize this program and put a proper structure and design to it, added to the corporate governance framework, which was also put in meticulously to ensure that the participants who were going through this journey are actually fully committed to the program. And to our astonishment or to our surprise, the participants who attended this program, all of them had one feedback saying that this is one unique program which has been a perfect transformation for us. We were expecting it to be a routine kind of classroom program where there would be a lot of a pull for us to come and attend the learning sessions, but we were actually driven by ourselves because the programs are pretty engaging and pretty participative. And the overall participant feedback which we have got from this cohort of that cross-functional 25 leaders speaks out in itself. The score of 4.75 on 5 in terms of the feedback was a measure of the effectiveness which was seen in the results of the program. So I think this is how we've been through this entire process and leverage the strength of upGrad as a partner for our learning and developmental needs in Bajaj Energy.
Thanks for that, Mohit. And if I can just add in, this is a great example of true partnership. And I do hear you when you said asking for the moon, but I would really talk about what a guiding force you've been in terms of the clarity of thought, in terms of where your employees are at, what are the skilling needs that you were looking at. And what was really impactful for our partnership also was the outcomes that you wanted to drive for the organization. This trifecta really is what drives the success for this program. And if I can just extend this forward, you touched upon a few very, very interesting pointers, and I want to take a couple of minutes and address those out as well. And for our audience listening in, for Bajaj Energy, they were very clear about the three things that they wanted as an organization, which Mohit mentioned, and I'm going to paraphrase. Look at the high potential and emerging talent in their organization, address the capability to gap that the organization expects from Mohit and his team, and third, really build a future ready organization. When we see such clarity of thought in terms of ideologies that a company comes with, it makes partnerships that much more fruitful. And when upGrad for Business started working with Bajaj Energy, we we brought in our patented learning architecture, which is AKAR, which stands for shape or to form or to materialize or to develop. It's a unique learning methodology which encompasses the four phases of awareness, knowledge, application, and reinforcement. One part of the design really was about giving a straight approach to modules like executive presence, sharpening negotiation skills, managing difficult conversations, leading remote teams, among others. The major difference here lies in the way it was crafted based on this AKAR or AKAR ideology. Mohit also spoke about this self-assessment or this self-reflection, and Mohit, that's really delightful for us to know that future leaders and leaders are so focused on self-awareness as the starting point to really where the change begins, and this is critical. This helps leaders become a lot more self-aware, and self-aware leaders help organizations become that much more successful and productive. Secondly, Mohit also touched upon the subject matter experts who brought in outside in perspectives from their years of experience. So the concepts which are backed by behavioral skills and enhanced and sharpened by experience. So for example, and again, this is for our audience, if the science to a certain thing suggests a 10-step process, the subject matter expertise that we brought in narrowed it down to three most critical steps that were practically applicable for the leaders and future leaders. Based on this, the employees who underwent programs were able to get a better understanding of how this approach relates to their work activities, relationships, and decisions that they are making. It also made it easy for learners to remember it by making it an acronym, which again is the AKAR, the AKAR. This became the knowledge part of it. Thirdly, this learning was actually facilitated, emulated, and demonstrated through focus group discussions and small group coaching, where the knowledge that the learners gained was reflected back by them in the breakout rooms and again moderated by these subject matter experts. This gave a chance to each of the learners to understand their own gaps, and they themselves talked about how they can bridge it by using the concepts and the ideologies that they've learned. Last but not the least, the reinforcement really happened through peer and leader recognition. And here, full credit to Bajaj Energy. They have a culture of recognition, either through peers or through leaders or through management. We also conducted a post assessment where the supervisors rated the learners who underwent these programs after 3 months of program completion. And this is where the post assessment knowledge score was 89%. In my 2 decades of experience, this is a very stiff benchmark to beat, and it gives us great appreciation and humility about what the Bajaj Energy team has been able to pull out on this. This entire 4 month program was, of course, governed by the upGrad for Businesses core program management layer or the governance layer, which connected with the Bajaj Energy team every week to ensure on-time delivery, schedule as per the charter that we had created. A lot of care was taken to provide continuous engagement to the employees, to the supervisors, and to the management during these training sessions so that there is support across all parts of this learning journey.
So, well, there's been a great support from upGrad and the way they helped Bajaj implement the program. But for this program, Mohit, we would like to really understand from you what impact did you witness on the learners? And additionally, how did this future leadership program support the long-term organizational growth strategy?
So coming back to this, it's an important question. Any program which is done by the organization needs to be looked at specifically from the return of investment, from the point of view that what's the kind of benefit the organization is going to get from it. So, like I stated to you in the beginning itself, the whole concept of creating this program was to have a future ready organization, was to have leaders, future leaders who could actually take in reins of the business and move it ahead further. Now, it happens in any organization, people get so bogged down into their own work pressures and into their own lives. The focus on learning or the focus on softer aspects or soft skills, which are the key essential elements in leadership, are most of the time lost out. So people become very monotonic, people become very theoretical or methodical in the processes. But ultimately, when organizations are moving on, the most important element even today, despite the advent of technology in businesses, remains about people, about managing people. So if you have people who have all the technical know-how and technical expertise, but they still don't know how to manage teams, don't know how to groom teams, or how to groom their successors, or if they do not know how to demand peak performance from their employees, if they do not know how to show empathy to employees when it's needed, I think they will not be able to retain employees, and that will become a more bigger or challenging issue which organizations today are facing. With the high rates of attrition, with the high, what to say, low retention or low engagement levels, I think organizations need to look at how do we create that binding glue within the organization, and that can only happen through interventions like this, where you're making people holistically developed on all aspects of the job, right from functional skills, technical skills, behavioral skills, and all that. So when the 25 set of leaders who had undergone this program, there were a lot of senior leaders who'd been working in the organizations with 2 to 3 decades of experience. And if I would like to quote it verbatim from what they felt about the program, like the head of operations, Manoj Mehta, or maybe the vice president operations in the team, and one of the senior colleagues, Alok Srivastava, they were speaking to me during the conversations. They said that this program actually helped us in clearing a lot of myths. We always had one way of one size fits all kind of a concept in dealing with things and problems. And we never actually believed that listening is also a very important tool as a leader. So when you speak about some simple things like this, will become very relevant in today's context, people started using those things. And what people really appreciated was they realized that for leaders, it's not just that being a leader, I should know all the answers to all the questions. As a leader, I should be able to ask the right questions to teams, and I should be able to facilitate. I should not be someone who's the God who knows everything, all of it. I should be someone who should be able to empower, and that makes a difference. Again, one very interesting point which came in because of the usage of the industry experts, the brainstorming sessions, the focused help group discussions which were there were a lot of scenarios, reality scenarios, which actually came into light, which people brought into discussion. So the cat is out of the bag and you're speaking things which you always try to hide or try to cover up. You want to keep it as a black box. That became more evident. So what leaders saw is that the company or the organization today is more becoming more transparent, is becoming more evolved, and you need to be open about accepting new changes. So that is how it is. One very interesting facet which all the leaders probably spoke about was that for they always thought management was always theory. They never thought that management could also be done using structured models, using proper frameworks, using a proper science and design behind it. So using the McKinsey models, using the different models of communication, using the models for doing difficult or critical conversations, demanding peak performance, things like this were something which were not known to most of the experienced leaders, and they started getting back to those concepts, and they said this makes life far more easier. So it brings them into a situation where they're not getting stressed out. They're using a science like they're doing it in their technical works when they manage the power plants and the turbines. Likewise, they're managing people with a design behind it. And one very important facet which leaders also said, that they have started realizing that they do not need to micromanage teams. Most of the time what happens is the leaders are spending their time doing a two-level job below because they're doing the job of their subordinates or their peers. They do not need to do that. They need to stop micromanaging. That's how it is. And how do they build relationships so that they could be more productive? So this was some kind of feedback which the leaders had, which they shared, and we have also discussed that post the implementation of this program, we would want to look at what are the changes you brought in your teams and what is it that your team feels about you. In order to look at that change, we're going to do a post training completion 6 month survey in terms of looking at how the whole function has changed, what are the tangible and intangible benefits when the department has got, and how's been the retention, engagement level, and the productivity level within the organization. These are some of the parameters which will help us understand how the program is really working in its true sense post delivery.
Sure, sure. In fact, a lot many interesting insights from Mohit. But coming to you, Meenakshi, if you could also share some of the lessons for upGrad through this partnership with Bajaj Energy, and how did it fulfill the need for empowering our workforce with relevant skill sets?
Sure. Thanks, Pallavi. So it's very interesting that we're talking about the energy and utilities sector, which is one of the largest employers, if you look at the workforce of today. For us, one of the most gratifying lessons or learnings, if I were, was that the scope of leadership development is immense, and it will affect the way the future teams work. The style of working of current leaders will dictate the impact of the organization growth and health in the years to come. Gen Zs will constitute 30% of the workforce by 2030, and there's an increased need to create a leadership style that's suitable for millennials, the previous generations, and the Gen Zs. This Akar based learning is applicable for any generation of leaders. We can see it becoming the future of work, and Bajaj Energy is really the torchbearer of this. One of the learners, while we were going through this program, actually said that they felt better prepared to manage difficult and crucial conversations, not just with the team, but with the stakeholders and the entire team. And that's really where the rubber meets the road. Another important reflection for us is that the learning architecture of AKAR, or awareness, knowledge, application, and reinforcement, applies not just to leaders, but also to other levels of the workforce. And in the entire talent pyramid or an organizational pyramid, if you look at it, it will be equally effective through it all. And that's really what we mean by when we say the wholesomeness of a learning and development initiative for an organization.
Sure. So as we're moving towards the conclusion, I would like to hear from Mohit, and then I'll come to Minaxi. So if you could share some best practices with our community on reducing skill obsolescence, and what would be those best practices? How can leaders design more effective L&D programs, keeping this as a priority? Mohit.
So I'd like to give my thoughts on what could be some of the best practices in terms of reducing skill obsolescence in through L&D initiatives. In the current context, there are different elements which actually trigger the way you need to design your L&D, or you need to look at the practices which are being followed. So I want to give a little bit of context of those different factors which need to be looked at first, and basis that how you need to design your L&D practices and your best practices within the organization. See, today all of us know we're working with varied workforces, Gen X, Y, Z, and millennials. We also know that the technology is changing at such a fast pace. There is new hardware and software which is coming into the system and play. A lot of ways of how we were doing things are actually getting obsolete and changing. So the new hardwares and softwares need to be mastered at a very fast pace. You cannot go back to the school days and think that you will start everything and come back. You need to be doing it like climbing on a running train or a moving bus. That's how you need to do it. Now, you also need to understand one thing, that with the about two factors which you have in mind, you will need to improve the entire employee experience with the employee actually experiences when he joins the organization. If he is not going to get the experience which he is actually looking for, something which is on his fingertips, which is easily accessible, which is very readily searchable, he's not going to enjoy that, and that is not going to help you sustain a L&D practice. The hybridization of the workforce is making remote teams a reality today. So you do not have everyone working together. You need to look at L&D models or systems which can take into account even this factor. So looking at all these elements, I think the new tech edge companies in L&D space like upGrad, who are providing platforms which are actually available to remote teams, available to teams working in the plant, which are available to teams at any point in time, whether I'm in office or I'm at home or I'm at a playground, I still want to do some learning, I can do that. And the whole transition is shifted from the classroom kind of training to micro learning training concepts, where I need to have a 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes video, and I can learn that and I can go on. So I don't need to go and sit and take a textbook and start reading it. Can I design modules which are easily accessible? Can I use artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality to create content which is very readily available on the mobiles, on the desktops, on the computers and laptops, available anytime, anywhere for me to enhance my knowledge. Because the point is, people have a very short concentration span. They're not going to carry it for long. So changing the learning landscape using technology, using micro learning concepts, using your AI, VR, new age technology concepts is going to help. That's one thing. The second best practice is, if I am able to help employees to see that they are getting certified, they are increasing their competence and they are actually getting certified through that competence, then I am able to actually keep them motivated to keep learning. So what happens is, when I have any LMS module which helps me to let the user learn it at his pace, do the exams, do the assessments, get it completed and get a certification that I've completed it, it gives him a sense of pride. So that is where this reskilling and upskilling using the LMS modules through particularly curated or designed courses, both on the technical side and on the functional behavioral side, certifying them at regular intervals of time is going to keep them engaged and motivated, is what I very strongly believe in. This will also help in one thing, by creating an L&D module which is focused on improving the competencies of people, either in newer areas of their job or probably improving the competency in the existing job itself. So improving the competency, which is like upskilling himself. These
Right.
two things are actually going to help the employee keep very engaged, and it is also going to help the organization to increase its retention and internal mobility. So growth from within the organization. So this model of L&D using new technology, using micro learning, using certification based courses, some of the best practices which are happening today will help the organization actually retain and sustain the top talent, and that will be the foolproof way of being a future ready organization. That's my firm belief.
Right. So engaging, enabling, and empowering is the way to go. On that note, it's time to wrap the conversation. Minaxi, any message that you would like to give to the community, which we might have missed during the discussion? Your quick remarks.
Sure. Well, I would say very, very insightful. It was lovely to hear Mohit on how he's driving this engagement for his organization. Just kind of bringing this all together, I would actually say that talent in organizations is better engaged when their learning aspirations are aligned with business goals. It benefits enterprises where employee satisfaction and retention, increases brand value and overall business growth. I would urge companies and leaders to help learning and development teams quantify the outcomes that they're seeking and build that as a bridge to how it is connected to the business priorities. While a lot of companies are trying that, the most successful employees with the best amount of productive workforce are the companies who've been able to do that. And that's what I would say at this point in time.
Well, thanks a lot, Meenakshi and Mohit, for your precious time and for sharing those incredible learnings with us. It's been great having you both on the panel. And for everyone watching us, stay tuned for our next discussion, where we promise you more exciting and impactful takeaways on empowering your organization growth and strategies to thrive in the new age economy. Thank you, everyone.